Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you're watching Life is Monet. Today I have a very fun secret project that I'm very excited to be starting. This video will be in collaboration with Ashley over at The Bookish Realm. This year I've been getting more into reading graphic novels and mangas, and at first I was only really picking up ones that I had heard so much about, like reading Paper Girls and reading Saga and Heartstopper and things like that. But then I tried to actually go manga shopping for myself, and it was a disorienting experience because I just feel like I don't follow enough like manga centric booktubers to really like know my taste and what I like and what I don't like. And I want to find more series like Witch Hat Atelier, which I randomly picked up at Barnes & Noble's a few months ago and have been loving each volume that I've picked up since. And so this is really a foray into me trying to figure out what I like in a manga so that I can better adequately pick ones for myself when I go shopping. So moving into where Bookish Realm becomes a part of this vlog, Ashley reads a ton of graphic novels, comics, and mangas. She even has a second YouTube channel called Realm of Comics where she primarily focuses on just reading that genre. And so I asked Ashley to send me a video of her recommending just any mangas and graphic novels to help me do a taste test to decide what I like and what I don't like so that I can better shop for myself in the future. I feel as though Ashley using her vast vault of knowledge to recommend me books is way better than me stumbling through Barnes and Nobles and just picking up random novels and not really knowing what to do. So after me just blindly running into cozy fantasy and murder mysteries and things like that on my channel, I decided that I wanted to bring in an expert this time to make better conscious decisions than I feel like I would because they have more knowledge than me. So I'm gonna pull up Ashley's clip that she sent me and we're gonna see what she had recommended to me.
Hello. Y'all know I had to do the Monet introduction. Hey Monet, what's up? How you doing? I'm so happy that you felt like our friendship was strong enough that you'd allow me to pick out these books for you. I'm excited to do this for you. You know, comics and manga and graphic novels are some of my favorite mediums. I absolutely love them. And so I have 10 things for you. Now, I don't know if you want to read all 10 of these. It might be a lot. So, you know, mix and match. If you want to read all 10, if you just want to choose a couple from one list and a couple from another list and combine them. But I think that the 10 gives you a good variety of choices here. So I've read all of these, of course. I would never recommend you anything that I have not read. I've read all of these at different points in my life, and they all are monumental for their own reasons. So I'm gonna start off with the manga. Now, don't judge me, because I know you're finna judge me. Some of these I don't have volume 1, and that's all right. That's all right. I read volume 1, I just don't own volume 1. So for the sake of editing, we gonna hold up a volume, but you know to start with volume 1. I'm a hot mess. You see how long it took me to even film this clip, right? You see how long it took me? Anyway, let's jump into the manga first. And the first one that I have for you, don't cuss me out. That's all I ask you is don't cuss me out. Don't look at me sideways. But I really think that everyone should experience this manga at least once in their life. I can't even say the full name. Well, I'm not going to say the full name of the manga because I don't want your video to get demonetized and nothing like that. So here it is. D Fight. This is a 5-star read for me, and I honestly put this one on the list mainly for very selfish reasons. I just want to see your reaction to it. Literally, that's the only this is the reason why I included this one, because I want to see your reaction, and I had to include at least one tile that was a little off the wall, but this is really sweet and charming and endearing and not what I think you're expecting. Yes, it is an island of men who have D fights, and they wear these elaborate, as you can see, coverings over their specimens because the goal is for them not to, you know, whoosh. What? I'm doing a horrible job describing this. And maybe this is just one that you should just read the back of this one. This next one is probably one of my favorite manga. No, it is one of my favorite. It made my favorites list for the mid-year of manga that I've read so far this year, and it's The Apothecary Diaries. This one is a little bit longer, but it is one that I am currently in the midst of reading, and I think it's one that you would enjoy. It follows a young girl by the name of Meow Meow, and she is working in the Emperor's Palace as a low-level servant, and she attracts the attention of one of the Emperor's many wives, and she ends up being able to work and practice her expertise in herbal medicine. I think one of the interesting things about this one is the mystery elements. It's really, really good storytelling. The art is amazing, and I think that it has some very interesting feminist undertones to it that you might end up appreciating. I think you'll enjoy this one. The next one that I have on this list for you is one that I think if you do read it, you need to have more than volume 1, okay? These read very, very quickly, and when I say quickly, you probably could read a volume in about 30 minutes. The thing about it is that you're gonna get sucked in. As you get sucked in, you're gonna wanna continue to read more and more volumes. So, you could just read volume 1, but you may wanna pick up more than volume 1, or you may want to plan to purchase more after volume 1. And unfortunately, I don't have volume 1, so I'm going to be holding up volume 9. And it's Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Ashimi. Ooh. Honestly, I'm not going to even tell you what this one is about. The best way to go into this one is to go in not knowing anything and letting the story unfold. It is a very heartbreaking, tragic, and disturbing look at the relationship between a mother and her son. The most interesting thing about this entire situation, this entire story, is that the first 12 or 13, it's either 12 or 13 volumes of this manga are simply the prologue. That is it. The actual story does not begin until after those volumes. So you're in for a long ride. It is a really, really great series. The artwork in this one is chef's kiss. Everything, all the emotion in this series is in the eyes. And it is very disturbing to read, but it's one of those like, oh my gosh, it's a train wreck, but I can't look away type of situation. The next one I have is one that I think you're going to be on the fence about. But I wanted to include it because it's one of the first manga that I was ever introduced to, and I think it's one that most people are familiar with. It's one that has quite a few adaptations, and I think that people end up really, really enjoying the beginning, but kind of feel some ways about how the series ultimately ends, and that is Death Note. So I've read a few volumes of Death Note. This is the all-in-one, which I do not recommend getting unless you're in for the long run. It's actually not that long of a series, but it focuses on a character who who finds the notebook of a death god, and basically what he can do is he can write the name of anyone in this book and they will inevitably die. So it's very interesting because I feel like it's kind of this commentary on someone who's being a vigilante, and where do we draw the line on, you know, well, I'm taking matters into my own hands and I'm protecting society from these people, but at what point do we say, all right, now you're crossing the line? Along with that, you have an agent, police person, investigator, who is trying to figure out who is killing these people. So you have these paralleling stories of them trying to outwit each other. I haven't picked up Death Note in a long time, but in terms of how a lot of people step into manga and a gateway for manga, I think Death Note is definitely one of those series. It's not the only series, but I do think it's one of them. The last manga that I have for you is Nana, which is one of my favorite manga of all time. This is the Josei manga by Ayazawa. I feel like it's such a beautiful story, heartbreaking story. Two women, both by the name of Nana, end up moving to Tokyo together, and it's more slice of life. We follow them. One is a musician, one just can't get her life together. I think this is just a good glimpse into Josei. It's an older manga series. Unfortunately, this one is not completed. It's been on hiatus since 2018. 9, I believe. I don't think Aizawa is ever going to finish the manga, but the anime, this was the first time I think I had watched, outside of Sailor Moon, I think this was one of the first animes that I ended up watching. So I thought I would include it on the list as well. This video is too damn long for me just to give you some recommendations. Okay, but seriously, let's shift gears. So I have graphic novels. Now, 2 of these I purposely included on this list because I know how much you like history. And you are so brilliant, so intelligent, so well-versed in so much about history. And I wondered how you would feel about these 2 specific graphic novels that are 2 of my favorite graphic novels of all time. Also, as a fellow history lover, as a history major as well, I can't say enough about these 2. So I'm gonna go with this one first, which is They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. This follows George's experience while living in an internment camp during World War II. Very, very beautiful, heart-wrenching, and eye-opening graphic novel. And then after that, this is literally, if I had to pick one graphic novel, and it's the only graphic novel I could read for the rest of my life, it would be Persepolis. I was first introduced to Persepolis my freshman year of college. It was our campus-wide read. All the freshmen had to read Persepolis. I thought it was very unique that the college chose to pick a graphic novel. And I had heard of it when I was in high school because I had watched the adaptation with a friend in high school, but I hadn't read it. I instantaneously fell in love with it. If I could not read anything else, you know, graphic novel wise, and I could only choose one, it would be Persepolis. I have read this probably 4 or 5 times at this point. It is one of the best things that I have ever read. It follows Marjane Satrapi, and it takes place 1979, around the time of the Iranian Revolution. So she speaks to a lot of what Iran was like during that time, how it impacted her and other people in her life, and her parents sending her abroad, having to grow up in Europe and wanting to come back home, but just the upheaval, and tying that into the legacy that has been left by the British and the Americans and Russia, and oil tying into all of that. But it very much so is also a coming of age story, and I love it. I'm due for another reread this year, haven't read it yet, so I think that this is one, these 2, if I felt confident about anything in these recommendations, these 2 right here, I feel like you will enjoy and appreciate these 2 more than anything else. All right, and the next one that I have is a young adult graphic novel that I think you'll enjoy, and that's The Magic Fish.
Oh, it looks so
This
adorable.
is one that I read about a year ago. It is a queer graphic novel about a young Vietnamese boy who is trying to come out to his mother, but unfortunately there is no direct translation for him attempting to come out, and so he tries to explain how he's feeling through fairy tales because he's also helping his mother learn English. And this one has a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ending. The next graphic novel is one that I think should have won the Goodreads Choice Awards, and because I feel like it was robbed, I'm gonna put it on your list, and it's Wash Day Diaries. The title says it all. It is literally Wash Hair Diaries. 4 friends. It's about their lives, about Black hair, Black culture. It is one of the most beautiful graphic novels that I've ever read. One graphic novel that I read and I'm like, dang if I don't feel damn seen. The last one is one that I read recently, and that is Go With The Flow. This is a middle grade graphic novel, so I wanted to shake it up a little bit in demographics, like who they're targeted at. But this is a middle grade graphic novel that is about period justice, essentially. It showcases the experience of some people who literally just cannot function when they have their periods, whereas for others, it's easygoing. I love this. I wish that this was something that I would have had growing up. As a fellow mommy, I wanted to get your opinion and your thoughts about this one. All right, ma'am. You got me to record. You got this. You got a whole bunch of things to choose from to read. Get on it. You need to buy these books. Go to the library. Do whatever you got to do. Read. I'm so excited to see how you feel about these books. Do not let these books be the determinant about our friendship, ma'am. Okay? All right? You know, this does not affect our friendship in any way. I just want to go ahead and put that out there. Have fun, my love. I hope you enjoy. Mwah!
Okay, I'm like floored right now because this is exactly what I fucking wanted. Like, Ashley was going to recommend books that I knew I would never even be in the right section of the fucking store to pick up. I'm so ecstatic. I have what I think will be 5-star predictions. Very nervous about Dick Fight Island. Very nervous about that. But also, I feel not overwhelmed, but like excitingly overwhelmed. Where the fuck am I gonna find all these books? Because I know for a fact that, like, when I went to my Barnes& and Noble's like location, it is so hard to find the necessary volumes for these series, for the mangas and graphic novels that you're trying to read. And so yeah, we're gonna have to do a combination of Amazon and the library. And yeah, because I'm gonna check my Barnes& and Noble's location. I'll do a pickup if they have it, but something is just letting me know that they're not gonna have the volumes that I need. I also don't know which ones I'm gonna read. All of them? Should I read all of them? I don't know. I'm so excited. Ashley, thank you. This is why I asked you and all of your gloryfulness to come over to my channel and give me Rex, guide me in the right way so that I don't stray from the path. Some type of biblical conversation. Anyways, I will be back to let you guys know which ones I found, and then we're gonna get started. I'm very excited. I hope you're very excited. And if you haven't subscribed to Ashley's channel, literally, what are you doing? Where have you been? Are you living under a rock? Subscribe now. Patreon. Also, subscribe to the Patreon. So, as expected, Barnes& & Noble's absolutely let me down because they don't have majority of what I'm looking for in stock. And before heading over to Amazon, I decided to check Libby to see if I can get them from my library. And Libby held it down. They have every single recommendation except for 2 of them. Of course, Dick Fight Island would not be available through the library, but I am gonna get the e-version of that, which I think is like $6. And then Persepolis, I cannot find at Barnes & Noble's. I cannot find it on Libby, and I've tried other like free apps to read it, and there's also not an ebook version of this one, so I'm gonna have to order that one on Amazon. But I'm not too sad about it because I expect to really like it, so the investment feels worth it. I'm also very excited to see which ones I'm gonna add to my permanent collection at the end of this. So my goal is to make this as cost effective as possible because your girl is not rich. So I'm very ecstatic that Libby held it down for POP. So in terms of like my excitement level, I'm really excited for the 2 historical references, like Persepolis and They Call Us Enemy. I'm very excited about that one. Nana sounds really cute. The Lost Apothecary Diaries and The Big Fish, and maybe Blood on the Track. Like, those are the ones that are really sticking out to me right now. This should go fairly quickly because, I mean, that's one of the beauties of reading a manga or a graphic novel is for how fast it goes. I have some other reading that I need to do today, so hopefully I do some sprints tonight and then we knock out like 2 of these graphic novels. So in true Monet fashion, it's definitely been like 2 weeks since I was supposed to start this vlog, but here we are. Today I received the complete Persepolis in the mail. You guys know I mentioned before that I wasn't able to get this from the library or from my Barnes & Noble's. There also is not an ebook version of this, so I had to buy it and wait for it to come into the mail. So this is gonna be the first one that I start. My goal is to try to read at least like 3, maybe even 5 of the graphic novels today, and then read 3, maybe even 5 of the mangas tomorrow, and just let this consume my entire weekend because today is currently Saturday. But that feels like a lie even as I say this because I am 2 episodes away from finishing The Witcher for the season that we're currently in, and so I just ordered Wingstop, and I feel like as soon as it gets here, I'm definitely gonna like stop my reading and eat wings, watch The Witcher. And I've also recently started a K-drama. I don't even know if it's a K-drama, but it's a Korean TV show on Netflix called Bloodhounds, which is also really good, and I just watched the first episode, so I'm very intrigued. So I'm just in my TV era right now, and that's fine. So here's to hoping that we can complete this entire vlog in one weekend, but if we don't, who's gonna sue me? No one. I'm very, very interested in this one. Just for like my own personal taste. I have studied a lot of history. You guys know this. I have a master's that is under the realm of political science, international politics, and Iran is a country that I feel like is often entirely misunderstood and mistreated and perpetrated in ways that is not fair to the people by the actions of their government. And I actually share the same sentiments that other experts who have studied this for years feel the same way, that the Iranian Revolution is one of the most misunderstood and misconstrued revolutions in history. And so I'm very excited to just see what this looks like from my own voice's perspective, what the experiences of the author was throughout this time period, and just having a new, fresh take on old conversations that have been dominated by Western governments and Western philosophers. And it's just gonna be so dope to hear how this revolution impacted and changed the perspective of someone who actually lived through it. And so thank you again for Ashley for just putting this on my radar, because I feel like the Iranian people, beautiful culture, beautiful history, beautiful food. I'll come back and let you guys know like what's happening. But again, if I get lost in The Witcher, don't tell nobody. Okay, so I managed to get a good chunk of the way. I mean, maybe not to you, but to me, I'm proud of what I've managed to read in this time frame that I've been sitting on my couch. This is not, it's much more detailed and much more nuanced than I expected. And I don't know, I just kind of had this perception that she was going to breeze through certain aspects and really touch on like highlights, but there are so many like nuanced and like intricate minutia details that really speaks to what life was like at this time and how it affected her, especially with her being a child. She's not a perfect person by any means, and she's not afraid to be vulnerable. She's not afraid to be imperfect. She's not afraid to lay things bare as they were, not trying to support communism or be anti-communist or pro-Western countries, pro-US and Britain, or anti-US and Britain. Like, she is letting the readers maneuver through these events on their own and really showcasing both sides of all the scales, which I just have an utter appreciation for. And there's a couple things that are just sticking out to me, like as I read it from what I know. One of which is her father makes this comment that, you know, most of the country was illiterate at this time period, and we're in, you know, 1980s at this point, maybe like 1982, 1983. I could be wrong, but considering where we are right now, where Iran actually has a very high literacy rate for its population, it's just like there are wins that has happened. Are they big? I don't know who's measuring them. It depends on the person who is looking at the scale. But there has been forward momentum despite all of the losses. But where I am right now, they have officially ousted the Shah, and the country is divided on how to move forward from this regime, this brutal regime that they were just recently under. And there are some fundamentalist extremists who have a very staunch idea of making this an Islamic republic, and they are pushing forward with the necessary brutality to bring this forth. And there's just a moment where she is talking about how she just wanted to go to school and be a scientist, and that she wanted to be like Marie Curie, and if she got cancer during her life's work, it would be worth it. And so she's balancing that. Not only will she never, at this point, because she's feeling like, you know, it won't be an option, but not only will she not be able to go to school to study science and chemistry, by the same age that she expected to do this, she may be saddled with 10 kids. And so it just portrays this balance of the loss of one dream and the grieving of one dream with the ensuing nightmare of the other alternative. Like, I've just feel like it really portrayed both spectrums. Like, not only will I not be able to do this, but the things that I will be subjected to instead is, you know, not what she wants. It's not her choice. There's a lot of arguments around women taking up the veil. And of course, there are people who are very, you know, fundamentally involved in this, and they have very strong opinions. And it sucks to see that this level of devotion that is now seeming like it's going to be a requirement to exist within this new society, this level of devotion is being forced. And I don't know. If she chooses to wear the veil, all power to her. I think it should be a choice. And if you choose it, then I fucking support you. But also, if you don't choose it, then like, I don't know. It's just the unfairness of it all. When things are hitting the fan, it's really up in the air when individual families decide to leave. And so people have automatically like left the country, snuck out of the country, and her family is warring with this decision because they just have not really pictured the full scale of the turn of events that is coming. So I'm just wondering, I guess, at what point they are going to jump ship and they are going to say, okay, it is time to leave our homeland. And that's not an easy decision to make for anyone. She is explaining the new, I guess, looks of this time, the difference between the fundamentalists and the modern male and female and what they may dress like. And I'm just in love. I'm basically just here to let you know that I failed at my incredibly unrealistic goal for today. I'm calling it a night. I did manage to read this much of Persepolis, so I have like maybe 150 pages to go, which I'll definitely finish in the morning. I am enjoying it so much so far. We are at the point where she has left Iran. Her parents has founded at the point where it's time to leave for the sake of her safety, and she is adopting to Western culture. And I feel like I'm getting the same shock with her because I watched her country become traditionalist and I watched her country be changed by fundamentalist beliefs about how women and men should dress, act, behave, and interact with one another. And we were in that space for so long that when we were actually exposed to Western culture and Western Europe, their frivolity around sex is a very eye-opening experience. And she meets someone who is young as she is, but very sexually liberated in a way that I don't think is ever accepted in Western culture. Like, teens having the amount of sex that this teenager is in this book is not accepted despite it being a normal thing. And so it's just, to me, I'm like also feeling that shock with her of like, this is a lot to go from a traditionalist country to meeting someone that is so carefree and so open with their sexuality and the partners that they have. And it's just, I hate that that was her first exposure to that, despite me knowing that that experience is a dime a dozen. And somehow I still feel as shocked as she does a little bit of like, we really don't look, not we, because like she's in Austria at this point, but like Western countries really don't look good from this particular angle. Like this is not helping us. But yeah, I will be back tomorrow. I'm doing live sprints on my Patreon, so here's to hoping that we make a ton of progress, but no promises. Hello, I'm back. I am in the middle of doing sprints with my Patreons, but I did manage to finish Persepolis, and this one was life altering for a multitude of reasons. There are 4 memoirs or autobiographies that have imprinted themselves on my soul, that grew me as a person, that enhanced and expanded my perspective, that I feel like I was a better person coming out on the other end of their story than I was when I first started. And this one has now solidified itself as number 5 of literally all-time favorite life impacting stories by individuals and their experiences. This was wonderful. There was one moment towards the end of this book where she's having a dialogue with her father, and he makes a statement that kind of encapsulate what I think this journey was. He said, "We Iranians were crushed not only by the government, but by the weight of our own traditions. Our revolution set us back 50 years, and it will take generations for all of this to evolve." That is going to stick with me forever. I mentioned in the beginning that I thought that the Iranian Revolution was one of the most misunderstood, most misconstrued revolutions in history, and it just is heartbreaking to see the individuals that wanted so much more for their country, but saw their dreams morphed into a nightmare, saw their hope for a better tomorrow and a better reality twisted in on itself and became this repressive, fundamentalist, traditional society. And of course, it's very clear in the story that this is not something that everybody is on the same page for. There are people who are true Iranians that fundamentally believe that this was the best route for their country. And but then there was also people that didn't agree with this, that were forced to be silenced. There's so many individuals that are not alive today. So many generations of families ended because they were not on the same page on the future of their country. And so shout out to Ashley. She knew I was going to love this. She knows me very well. She knew that this book was going to eat, and it ate not even 5 out of 5, 6 out of 5. 6 out of 5 stars for sure. I am going to sweep them out my floors because that's something that I've been putting off for a while. I'm going to switch over to an audiobook, but I will be back later on to read. I don't know. I feel like I want something cute and lighthearted now. So maybe we're gonna go with the Flow or the Magic Fish. One of those are gonna be my next pick. So last night before I fell asleep, I actually ended up reading and finishing The Magic Fish, and I thoroughly enjoyed this one. This is a second 5-star read within this vlog, so I'm feeling very just excited about that. This follows a young boy who is an immigrant in a country. This book is kind of similar to Encanto in that you can infer the experiences and the hardships without it needing to be told to you. And so you understand almost immediately that this kid is an immigrant from Vietnam that left due to particular just hardships and experiences, maybe due to the war, and they are struggling to survive in their new domestic country. And his grandmother's sick, and so his mom is forced to travel back home to lay her to rest, and he is having a really hard time coming out to his family. And it was just really cool to see that he was rather comfortable and confident in his sexuality despite his young age, and he was really trying to consider the feelings of his family and what this would do to them culturally, spiritually, their religious views, like everything, on top of the fact that, you know, he is just genuinely, he's wanting to be a good son. Him and his mom connect through stories. And so the book is kind of told simultaneously with them reading fairy tales to one another. And I found that I really enjoyed the fairy tale aspects almost a little more than him interacting in like his day-to-day. But you're inferring who his crush is. You don't really get a lot of like explicit, clear details, but I feel like it ended on such a beautiful note, and you can again infer what's going to be the next step and where they're going to move in the future. And so it gives a very like hopeful feeling. And I just thought that it was beautiful to balance showcasing the things that he's dealing with without needing to label him as such, because it kind of discredits the experience, because this is about a young boy being transparent with his family, and those things do not necessarily and inherently depend upon his race or his ethnic identity or his immigration status. But it was still really beautiful to hear how his mom has been in their new country for 8 years, and it took her 8 years to earn a passport. And so they've been essentially disconnected from their family for a really long time because you can't travel without a passport. And so it was wonderful. But one of the things that kind of surprised me the very most about reading this book is that I actually thoroughly enjoyed the artwork. That was really the first time that I think I've ever like taken in the art of something that I'm reading, like a comic or a graphic novel. And this style is like monochromatic, similar to like Heartstopper, but I just thought that the illustrations in this one was really, really beautiful. So this was really cool because I feel like if I know an art style that I like, it will help me as I start to shop for myself, flipping through different graphic novels or mangas and looking for an artistic style that I really enjoy. I'm back this morning with my iced coffee. I'm gonna finish listening to the audiobook that I'm currently listening to, and then we're gonna go into Wash Your Diaries, because the art in that one looks as though I'm going to enjoy it almost as much as I've enjoyed The Magic Fish. But definitely will be adding The Magic Fish to my permanent collection because that was just such a cute damn book. Yo, when I tell you that this This is me in the shower with the 4 clips and the comb. I literally keep hair clips and a comb in my shower. This is, girl, I feel you. Girl, look at the determination. Look at the determination. Girl, I'm with you, honey. You're tired. By the time you get to that front section, you're tired. I feel it. I felt this in my soul. I felt it in my soul. If it's wash day, I ain't going nowhere. I'm in my house looking just like old girl. Moo and all. I'm not going nowhere. My hair will be wet for the next 24 to 48 business hours. I'm not going nowhere. I'm sorry. Wash day diaries? Banger. Banger. Fucking banger. 10 out of 5. 10 out of 5. My goodness, that was beautiful. That was beautiful representation. It was the small stuff, man. There's literally a visualization of one of the characters getting her hair braided, and the snipping of the flyaways, of the little pieces of hair that was sticking out. They had a slumber party at the end, and at one point in the night, all the girls started putting on their bonnets and their scarves, and it just, man, it was beautiful to see. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. I literally cannot believe that I'm 3 for 3 with the 5-star reads right now. This has never happened to me before. I not even underestimated Ashley, but as a librarian, the Rex don't miss. It's like, do you know me, Ashley? Do we know? Like, are we connected? Are we soulmates now? Because you brought me joy through reading. That's orgasmic. Like, we're locked in. We're locked in at this point. I don't miss these days. I've had this experience happen to me, and it was mortifying. I feel so bad for her. This really just hurt me because this mom comes in and she realizes that her daughter got her period while at school, and so she tells her mom, and she's like, "Oh, I got my period," and her mom is like, "Oh," and then like immediately leaves. And I just, the lack of care and knowledge and teaching and comforting, and that hurt me so much because it was such a mortifying experience. And I feel like a little bit of like comfort and words of affirmation, and just, let's prep you a bag so that next time this happens, you're ready. You don't need to borrow stuff. Like, this could have been such a cool learning lesson. And here, when she gets out of the shower, she comes back to her room, and her mom just left these on her bed. Like, no teaching, no discussions about preference, not even asking her how heavy her flow is, different options for how thick the pads or the tampons should be. Like, this is such a good luck, survive on your own situation, and I'm so bothered. So I just finished Go With The Flow, and this is another one that I really enjoyed. It is beautiful to see depictions that you can really truly relate to, and there's something that just emphasizes the connection when you have visual art to go along with it. And I have found that these examples are just so much more endearing to me because I get to not just see things in my head and, my imagination, but I can really see the author's intent. And it just feels so beautiful to know that they got it right, and that I'm not inferring or jumping further along just because I want more to be there than what is there. All of these graphic novels have been, like, you can really truly tell that the author's intention and their vision was just really in alignment with you as a reader. And this one was all about friendship and, getting to know your body and the different types of periods and how they affect your lives. And the one part of the story that just really, really, truly got to me, and this is just like my own personal thing, is that when a parent is not educating their child and giving them the necessary tools and resources and knowledge, kids in turn to their friends. And so there is a general conversation and just camaraderie that happens within a close friendship. And you're basically banking on your child having educated friends or friends that care enough that are going to lead them down the right path, but it really truly was like a depiction of the youth leading the youth and the blind leading the blind. And it was just, it hurt me that her mom passed up on such a big moment to educate her daughter. And this young girl had to turn to her friends who also learned through trial and error. And so if you have a group of youth that are all naive in the same way, and there isn't someone who has pioneered into a new area of life that has at least a little bit of experience and knowledge to go off of, then it could go awry so fast. And that isn't the case in this book, but it was just the sentiment was there, the possibility was there. And I appreciate the messaging again. And so definitely enjoyed this one. I think I'm going to start leaning more towards these for graphic novels because I just truly enjoyed Wash Day Diaries, The Magic Fish, and Go with the Flow because they speak to personal experiences that I know other people have gone through as well. And even if the particular experience is not something that is specific to me, it's nice to have that context. It's nice to be placed in the head and in the shoes of someone who's going through something particular, because you never know if I'm going to be in a place to meet an individual like that in my real life and to be able to help them and be able to show them that they're not alone in their experiences. I am calling it a day because I'm done just with the physical reading. I'm going to switch over to an audiobook and chill out for the rest of the night. We have one more graphic novel and it's relatively short, and that is They Call Us Enemy. And then we're moving on to mangas. I just finished They Called Us Enemy, and the author chose to tell his story in a very particular way. I do think that it was effective. I just have, I think, conflicted feelings about the layout of the messaging, only because the history of Japanese Americans being forced into internment camps during World War II is something that is not really talked about, and it's never been in a history book in school, in public school, that I've seen. And it wasn't something that I learned about until college. And it came up in the topic of reparations because this was probably the only event in which the American government accepted culpability and paid out restitution to the surviving members of this event. I am giving the author much more leeway because he was a child when he was living in these internment camps. And so for majority of the book, he's touching on how things were much harsher and harder to deal with for his parents. But when he really puts you in the shoes of what was happening at this internment camp, majority of the time it is from a child's perspective that is not necessarily aware of what's going on around him. And the only time that he kind of takes you out of this space is to talk about like policies and the rollout of different policies and how that affected individuals, how people begin to feel towards the American government that was ousting them, that was making them social pariahs, that was forcing them to live basically in imprisonment during World War II, asking them to give up their citizenship to America or denounced Japan. It was just a lot, and I just found that it was a discombobulated experience because we didn't get to see some of the harsher aspects of the internment camps themselves, more of just the political turmoil that Japanese Americans were put in due to specific policies. And he does talk about different representatives that were in Congress and presidents at the time and their actions. And so I just feel like this was a perfect opportunity to go more into the gritty details of what it was like to live into these camps. But he's telling that particular aspect from him being a child. But he has had these conversations with his father. And so I feel like he knew and could really speak to some of the harsher aspects, but for whatever reason he chose not to. Maybe he just felt like that aspect in particular was a specific experience to the adults, especially regarding his parents, and so maybe he didn't feel comfortable sharing their humiliation, if I'm going to be honest, and some of the most degrading experiences that they've had. And I have to respect that. I just hope that this starts a bigger conversation around this part of history and what was actually happening, because America has had a lot of witch hunts in its history. One thing that I really did enjoy was the conversations around what it meant to be American, because we are such a melting pot of different ethnicities and races and things like that. And so there was a huge sense of betrayal, because there were so many people that had lived in America, that considered themselves Americans, and their kids were born here, and it was almost as if there was no discrimination. They were treated, whether you were born in Japan and living in America or born in America, everybody was treated nearly the same way. And it kind of reminded me a bit of the Mexican expatriation that happened not too long after this, because there again was the forced deportation of Mexican Americans who had legal citizenship, and that's also just something else that's not really talked about, but I'm getting off track. But his father still believed in the American dream. He still believed in democracy. He still believed that for all of its imperfections, America had the best version of democracy because it was a democracy of the people. So there's a conversation that he's having with his dad, and his dad says, our democracy is a participatory democracy. Essentially, it's dependent on people who cherish the shining highest ideals of our democracy and actively engage in the political process. And so that is, I think, the perfect way to encapsulate, I guess, our country and how I definitely view it, is that if people are engaged and they are enlightened, they are educated, and they are actively participating, we can get far. But when people are on witch hunts, when they are operating out of fear, when they are operating out of hatred and racism, when they're operating from a place of naivete, and they become like this mob out for blood for whoever they feel like is appropriate to hang at the stake at that time, our democracy starts to fail and break down in so many areas. And so it was just very interesting to see that even after all of the experiences, his father still truly believed in American democracy and the possibility that it could work even after being subjected to its failure. Definitely glad I read this one. We're officially moving on into mangas. I don't know what I'm gonna pick up first. I want something kind of fun. Maybe it's time to get Dick Fight Island out of the way, because I definitely pushed that further back. Maybe it's time to start with Dick Fight Island. We're on this island where we have one representative from 8 different clans, and they are coming to sword fight with their third arm. The winner of this tournament will be the king for the next 4 years until the next tournament. And one of the contestants apparently studied abroad and came back with this very special technique where he could incapacitate an opponent, which basically means getting them to ejaculate. And he could do this without even using his heavily armed third arm. And I'm like, oh, what is the technique going to be? And I feel like I set myself up for that, because the technique required going through the back entry and parking his fingers in the G spot. And just, wow. Wow, let me get my head in the right spot, because clearly I am not in the mental space that I need to be. But now everyone is like wowed and appalled and trying to understand how he even did that so quickly to his opponent without using his third arm. Ashley, I'm gonna cuss you out. I'm gonna cuss you out. Absolutely. The battles are decided by one simple criterion: whoever ejaculates first. To guard against that, armor was designed for the manhood, growing larger and more elaborate by the year. However, the ass remains completely vulnerable. I think I died here, guys. This is the ghost of Monet. Cause what? I literally don't even know what to say about what I just read. Ashley did not give a full story for what was in this manga at all. Like, the emphasis in the description was placed on the sword fighting with penises, or the penis fighting. This was a full-on pornographic queer manga. Was so unprepared for that. Was so unprepared for all of the additional things that happened besides the penis fighting in the tournament. I feel like I just got my cherry popped in a lot of ways, and I need to digest that, come to terms with that. That happened. That was something, and I feel like I'm no longer a virgin to a variety of different things. Last night I was able to finish Nana before I went to bed, and this one, first of all, I did not get really know what the book was about going into it, and so we opened the story with a girl named Nana, and she is very lovesick and boy crazy with individuals that she meets. She went to an all-girl school for majority of her schooling, and so that has kind of stunted her emotional growth and her fanaticism with the male species. And I personally hate reading from the woe is me, pick me perspective, and I just felt like her naivete around men, her obsession with the men, was just too much for me. And so like I was at the point with like I was gonna DNF the book because I already knew that this Nana wasn't gonna be the character for me. But it was so short that I decided to just finish it, and then about a little more than halfway, we ended up switching to another Nana. And she has, in some ways, similar humble beginnings. She's from a smaller town. She's into like the punk rock phase. She's in a band. She has a boyfriend that she is extremely in love with, and he's ready to move to Tokyo for a multitude of reasons so that he can hit it big with the band that just got signed. And she makes the decision to stay behind. Actually, both Nanas are in a position where their friends and loved ones are moving to Tokyo, but they are just not mentally or financially in the space to do it themselves. And so they make a promise to themselves that they're going to stay behind in their small town, work very hard for the next 1 or 2 years to get the money and the confidence to move to Tokyo. My guess is that they're going to meet each other at some point, and the second Nana in the story is a much stronger foundational character to me, and she immediately like flipped this manga on its head because I was extremely interested in her. And so now I'm kind of torn where I like the setup. I actually feel like if they do become friends, that the second Nana would be a great, not great influence, but would help the first Nana pass this. They may get into like a lot of trouble. Like there's so much potential there for how these two girls are gonna meet. I'm hoping that they do, because it would not be as fun to keep going back and forth between two different Nanas that like don't meet. What's the point of that? Like, I want friendship, I want found family, I want drama. If all of that is there, then I'm interested to keep moving on. I'm just gonna have to like kind of suffer through one of the characters' POV. If she remains so just boy crazy, that's gonna bother me. So we have 3 mangas left. That is the Apothecary Diaries, Death Note, and Blood on the Tracks. I forgot to mention earlier that Blood on the Tracks was actually not readily available, so I'm on the wait list for that. I think I'm going to read the Apothecary Diaries next, and then Death Note while we wait on Blood on the Tracks Volume 1 to be available on Libby. 5 out of 5 stars to the Apothecary Diaries. I can already tell that this is going to be a new favorite series for me, because I have already downloaded the first 5 volumes in this manga series. It gave me all the things that I love and feel when I read Witch Hat Atelier, and so I'm super stoked about that. This was an unexpected, like, cozy manga, which was something that I didn't really know that I needed. Like, I've read some very wholesome and just emotionally provoking mangas throughout this vlog and graphic novels, but this one was like cozy vibes, and I want more of it. I want more Witch Hat Atelier. I want more Apothecary Diaries. I would just eat these up. So we have Mao Mao, who studied to be an apothecary, and she is an herbalist by nature. She loves medicine and just things like that. And so she is kidnapped, and kind of sold to the palace to be a lowly level worker. And so she's just basically trying to keep her head down. She has some bitterness, of course, towards her kidnappers because they still receive a percentage of her regular wages. There's an illness that is running throughout the palace that is killing off all of the emperor's heirs, and they're trying to figure out if it's a curse or just what is really happening. And Mao Mao immediately recognizes the illness for what it is, and she ends up saving one of the concubine's daughter from passing away. And so the concubine is a favorite of the emperor, and she has several ladies in waiting, and so she decides to make Mao Mao one of them. And Mao Mao is like, okay, sure, but every event that happens throughout this volume moves her closer and closer to becoming an apothecary again. And so these are just fortuitous like moments and opportunities that Mao Mao is like, not what I really expected or wanted, but I'm gonna take advantage of this because I want to get back to focusing on medicine and creating this cure for any and all illnesses. And she is basically an herbalist and a mystery solver because there is multiple incidents that pop up where Mao Mao's expertise is called in and she's here to solve whatever is happening at this time. And it just feels like a fun freaking vibe, and I'm so excited to move forward and read the other mangas in this series. I will likely read Death Note later tonight before I go to bed, but I have to run some errands. I'm gonna be sitting in my car for a while, so maybe I'll take my iPad and start Death Note while I'm out and just waiting around for stuff. But I will be back. We're so close to the end of this vlog, and I feel like I have grown as a reader, as a manga graphic novel reader. I feel like I know so much more of what I'm interested in seeing, the things I want to feel, the vibes I want to be in. I think I'm still very excited for Blood on the Tracks because it sounds like it's going to be emotionally provoking in a lot of negative and like hurtful ways versus like the wholesomeness that I felt. And that just feels like a great space for me to be in because, you know, I like the macabre. I like the morbidness of it all. So we shall see. So much progress has been made today. I just finished volume 1 of Death Note, and that shit was fire. Like, I completely understand all of the hypes because I think of every manga series that I've started, this one had the strongest installation. It was the most fun. It was the most enticing. I'm very invested in our characters. The hero of this story is technically also like an anti-hero. He's a villain. He has this Death Note where he is like, I'm gonna make the world a righteous place and I'm gonna be the righteous leader. And the person that is technically the antagonist to him is supposed to be the good guys of the story, but they are definitely being petty back and forth with each other. And I feel like if this is the first volume, it possibly could be the first volume to a very dope series, and it felt compulsively readable in a lot of ways. And so I do think that I am going to read all of them because this was fun. That's literally the only adjective that I can think of. I love villains. I love me a good villain. And is his reasoning logical? Not at all. Not at all. He's not a decent person, but he's a young, like, high school student, and yet malicious and vicious in all the ways that count, but still has this very like sanctimonious perspective on the world. And it is a very twisted justification for what he's doing. And then we have the god of death that is kind of lording over him and exists in like all the scenes. And I really just connect with him because, first of all, I like the way he's drawn. It looks kind of scary, but I like the way he's depicted. And then also, he is not team like Kira or team L at all. He's like, I'm just literally here because I was bored in the death god realm and I came to see some entertainment from the humans. And even though you have my book, I have no loyalty to you. I'm just invested in where this goes. And so don't depend on me. Like, I'm here, but I'm not here. And I was here for that. I feel that as well because I feel like me as a reader, same. I have no loyalties either. I'm just here for the entertainment. And so me and the death god, we're on the same page. We're so close to the end of this journey. I am still waiting on Blood on the Tracks to be available on Libby, so I'll be back whenever I get access to that. It is finally time to get started. We did it. We're at the very end. I just finished Blood on the Tracks Volume 1, and Ashley was absolutely correct. This is not one that you just want to buy the first volume of because it ends on such an explosive cliffhanger. Like everything about the story is now much more twisted, dark, and demented, and it slips over into more like a horror, grotesque kind of vibe, which I ate up. I'm totally here for it. I am very sad about this one because volume 1 took forever to come from the library, and then none of my libraries have volume 2. I've been searching high and low on how I can read this series without having to buy them, and like my library nor Libby is holding me down, and so this is one where I have to read all of the volumes because I want more sick and twisted, demented relationships between a son and his mother. And this one, we're just gonna have to break the bank for because the library is absolutely not holding us down for this one, but it's okay because it feels like it's worth my investment. So let's recap. I can say that I think I enjoyed all of the graphic novels that I read. I can't pick a favorite. Probably Wash Day Diaries and Persepolis will share like a #1 spot because I love them that much. The one that I did not really enjoy from the graphic novel section would be They Called Us Enemy, and I've shared earlier my sentiments around that. And with the mangas, I have to say that the one that I probably least enjoyed was Nana. That is one that I don't foresee me continuing with the series right now. Maybe in the future if I'm just, I feel the need to continue, but not really. As far as my favorite, is really hard because I feel like the Apothecary Diaries would definitely be there because I'm already on volume 4. That's all I've been reading while I've been waiting on Blood on the Tracks to come through. But then I really enjoyed Blood on the Tracks and Death Note equally, and I see myself finishing all 3 of these, the Apothecary Diaries, Death Note, and Blood on the Tracks. So I'm gonna call those a win as well. I'm choosing to wipe Dick Fight Island from my memory. That was an experience that I don't need to recap. I don't need to really discuss. Just know that I definitely sent Ashley a text threatening justice. It will come. I don't know when, and I don't know how, but justice will be served. Thank you guys for coming on this journey with me. Let me know in the comment sections if you saw some picks that you feel like might be right up your alley. Make sure you go and subscribe to Ashley's channel because the recommendations are always hitting. And I'm so glad that she joined me for this escapade. I will see you guys in my next one.